I'm okay.
It's been a hectic Monday, that's for sure.
Well, that's a fact. That's a fact, Jack, as they say.
It has been very hectic today.
So,
I see the reaction.
I worry that you put a dream where, as much as we need housing.
Making sure both your screens are working.
yeah, they are. Yeah, this one, they're fine.
And then if you want to see who wants to talk, you can just do that. And then it'll be over here too.
Yeah, I don't need that. Let's just do
Do that.
home.
Agenda.
No, just, there you go.
All right, I'm just making sure that both.
Thank you, dear. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, tell Becky I'm sorry I couldn't get there Saturday night. I was not.
Oh, I understand. She did too.
I just I didn't want to. I was all right on Sunday, but I was not necessarily on Saturday night, so I didn't want to.
Well, we understand.
Hey Beth, go get Dave Cross for me, will you?
That's true, but the answer is to fix that issue. So
Ellen, how are you?
Doing okay.
I think you could fix it just by having the right process. Everywhere else I've been, the process is when you come in, you get your water and
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so now do you know this outfit?
I do. They've actually cut my right of way at DEC for years.
That's all I need to know.
They're
Yeah.
very reliable. It used to be Galloway Construction in Sunbright. And
Oh, good.
James Diaz.
Let's see, how many Galloways are there
There's a bunch.
in Morgan County? Probably 2,000. Good evening, everyone. At this time, I will call the regular June meeting of the Oak Ridge City Council to order. Our invocation tonight will be led by Pastor Keith Robinson of New Life Nazarene Church. Our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Oak Ridge High School sophomore Lily Drake, who also is the featured artist for the city for the Lavender Festival. So again, we welcome everyone here. And if you'd please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Robinson.
Thank you, Father, for the privilege of serving and for the privilege of serving others. I pray, Holy Spirit of God, tonight that in this meeting that you'll guide our thoughts and our minds, direct our paths. We pray for those that are in leadership today that you'll give unusual wisdom. You said if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given. And so, Lord, give unusual wisdom tonight in this meeting. And then, Lord, help us to be good stewards of all the resources that you've given us. We know that every good and perfect gift cometh from the Father above. And I pray, Lord, that you'll be in this meeting tonight, that you'll make us good stewards. And then, Lord, you know those that came tonight that are struggling, that are carrying unusual burdens in their life. We don't know anything about it, but you know it all about it tonight. And I ask, Holy Spirit, that you'll lift that load, that underneath will be the everlasting arms of God, that you'll lift and encourage and bless. Guide us tonight, we pray. Thank you for your love and for your grace, for your mercy. Guide us, we pray, in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Robinson. Willie?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lily. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Pro Tem Dotson.
Here.
Councilmember Gleason. Mayor Gooch.
Here.
Councilmember Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Hensley.
Here.
Councilmember Hope.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
All right, before we get into our regular order, I'm going to call on Police Chief Robin Smith to make some comments to us. Chief Smith.
I'd like to give an update on what the police department has done to enhance public safety in the Scarborough neighborhood since May 25th. I'll also share the department's plans for other adjustments going forward. I'm not at liberty to discuss the details of the criminal investigation. This is only informing you of changes of our procedures. Upon reviewing the events of May 25th, we found several opportunities for improvement. On the evening of the 24th, we became aware of social media chatter about a gathering in the Scarborough neighborhood. To prepare, the on-duty supervisor started making phone calls to ask more officers to come in to fill vacancies on his shift. We didn't take steps to call in additional teams at that time. After midnight, officers noticed an unusual stream of vehicles coming into the city on South Illinois Avenue. Officers patrolling the Scarborough neighborhood noticed an increase in vehicles and people on the street. The supervisor decided that with only 6 officers, including himself, he didn't want to risk creating a conflict by engaging the crowd. Rather than continue to drive through the crowded streets, the supervisor staged his team a short distance away to prepare for an emergency response if they were needed. A drone was launched to observe the crowd. Before the shooting, there were 4 911 calls received, all related to the growing crowd with reports of people carrying firearms. The supervisor observed the crowd from the drone's point of view and verified that there was a significant number of people carrying weapons. The supervisor contacted Anderson County Sheriff's Department and the Knox County Sheriff's Department and asked them if they would be on standby to respond to support us if they were needed, and they agreed to do that. Shortly after 3 o'clock in the morning, shots were heard, and our officers responded into the crowd. We later learned that a total of 9 people were wounded by gunfire and 1 person was cut. Following the incident that night, we began to take a proactive approach to how we respond to information gathered from social media. If there's a credible and corroborated information that there are plans to assemble a crowd in the city. I'm not talking about any one neighborhood, anywhere in the city. We'll call in additional teams of officers to establish a police presence by patrolling on foot. It's what we've been doing since the 25th. Several occasions we've had social media chatter that somebody's trying to build up a crowd, and so we just call in additional officers, additional teams that are off duty, put them on foot, and just have them go around and engage people face to face. We've done that the last 2 Saturday evenings. Also, our criminal investigators have gone out in the community on several afternoons just to talk to people. It's been very well received from what I've been told. There will be officers on foot the weekend of June 19th through 21st and July 4th and 5th. Now, going forward, we're changing our process to call in additional officers. We're working on setting up an on-call system that will have standby pay to a few officers to where we always have someone immediately available to call in if we need a few extra people. But we're also working on setting up a digital notification process to mobilize off-duty officers when we need them. Everybody that's not on duty. If we need to mobilize the whole department, we're setting up a process to do that. If there's another event like on May 25th, where we have a very large crowd that quickly assembled, we'll call on neighboring law enforcement agencies to provide mutual aid support. We will also activate our SWAT team and stage them nearby in case they're needed. We will be working on plans to conduct crowd control training and refresher training on incident command with our supervisors. I'd like to share one fact that has not been released before tonight. When the shots were fired on May 25th, our officers immediately drove into the crowd, loaded 3 gunshot victims into their police cars, and drove them to where paramedics were waiting to give them emergency care. Do you have any questions for me tonight?
Thank you, Chief. Questions for Chief Smith?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
One question.
Oh,
Will your future plans for situations like this involve having more people on the ground as well as in cars?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that
Okay.
question, because we have learned that is the most critical thing, is to get out of the cars, get out on foot, and just talk to people. I'll use this past Saturday, last 2 Saturdays, for example. We'd heard chatter on social media that they were trying to get people to come out and start another crowd. And so this past Saturday night, we held the team over that was working. They got off 7 o'clock. They'd already done 12 hours. They stayed over another 3 hours, and with a great attitude, by the way. And they were out on foot, just walking the sidewalks. So the main thing is to have a presence and to be seen. The people in that neighborhood deserve to be safe, and we want to do our part. You can't do that just by driving around in a car. You've got to get out and meet people.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for asking that.
Couple of real quick questions.
Yes, sir.
One, I wanted to make sure you were noting cars coming in. So it is our understanding that these were individuals who came into Oak Ridge and the Scarborough community,
Yes, sir.
not Scarborough community residents
sir.
in and of themselves.
That's my understanding. Of course, the TBI can probably give us more information on that, but our understanding is that these mostly were people not from our community.
Okay. Have you all gotten any follow-up or feedback? I'm not saying you getting it, but people bringing more to you since this incident? How's the engagement been with the community since this incident?
With the TBI, I think they're continuing to try to identify people who are witnesses to get them to talk to them. We've had, as far as just talking to people like myself out on the street, talking to someone, engagement's been very good, very real, the people that are residents there. As far as getting people to cooperate with the investigation, I can't really give you the answer on that. I'd
Sure.
have to have somebody from the TBI to tell you that, but I think it's 2 different things. One is our community talking to us. We have a very good relationship there. It may
Correct.
be a little bit different trying to talk to people who are
Correct.
not part of our community.
Correct, and that was more so what I was gauging.
Yes,
I know you've got the investigation, but then there are also relationships that were had with the
Absolutely.
folks in the community. And I wanted to make sure that you can get a sense that this had hindered or impacted the relationships in and of themselves beyond the investigation.
Yeah,
And that's
and
just
you're-
more of a gut, personal.
You're right.
Thought.
That's a very good question. And for I can't say 100%.
Sure.
That everyone feels that way, because everyone doesn't feel that way. Mm-hmm. But the good, solid citizens, which is the majority of the people that live in that neighborhood and live in the city, most people are good people, and they're glad to see you.
Sure.
But you can only build those relationships one conversation at a time.
Sure.
And so it goes back to what Ms. Smith had said, we want to make sure that we're engaging people, having conversations with them, and being consistent with the way we engage with our citizens.
Sure. One last question, and I know that there were a lot of questions that arose as a part coming out of this incident. Any thoughts or steps you're looking to take to inform the community or update people or address the questions that may be answered, even if you can't answer them, to create some opportunity for conversation?
Yes, I'll let the city manager speak to that one. I know he's working on that.
Yeah, we had a meeting scheduled. We moved that meeting at the request of folks in the community because it happened to conflict with another event that evening. And we were in the process of trying to reschedule that and get a new date out to folks.
Okay. So we are actively working on creating an opportunity
Yes, sir.
to engage the public as soon as possible.
We want to have a forum where anybody that lives in the community that wants to come speak and talk about what happened, ask questions, is free to do so and to contribute thoughts to what they feel like we need to do in the community.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
Chief Smith, I really do appreciate that explanation and also giving us some ideas about how proactively we can address a problem like this that happens anywhere in Oak Ridge, not just the Scarborough community.
Yes, sir.
I would also like to ask you if there's a possibility or you think it's necessary to reach out to neighboring police forces to assist us in something like this, because we have a limited amount of officers that are available. Your response to something like that?
So I have a meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock, or at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon with Anderson County Sheriff's Department, Tennessee Highway Patrol, TBI, and Attorney General's office to talk about just what you're speaking of. And we're working for, getting ready for June 19th through 21st and for the 4th of July and 5th of July. And the Sheriff's Department has offered to help us with having deputies in place to help us with processing prisoners if we need to, and they will transport them for us. And THP's offered personnel to assist with doing patrols through the city during that time. TBI is offering to help us with criminal intelligence. So the Attorney General's office usually has someone there with us on those nights also. So we have a meeting tomorrow night.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hensley?
Yeah, thank you, Chief Smith. I appreciate your information, but just a little background, and you don't have to answer this if you can't, but were the instigators Oak Ridge citizens, or they were from outside Oak Ridge, or was it a combination of both?
And I can't speak to that because that's part of the criminal investigation.
Thank you. I understood.
Any other?
I mean, I can speak to the perception and the conversation within the community, which has nothing to do with the official investigation. But my understanding as a pastor within the community, conversating with the folk who are there were individuals who came in from outside of Oak Ridge and created this conflict. So it's an understanding this is not who we are.
Thank you, Pastor.
That's my understanding also from multiple conversations.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. Madam Clerk, we're back on the agenda.
Under proclamations and public recognitions, we have a proclamation honoring Wayne Blacius on the occasion of his retirement from the city of Oak Ridge.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. There are none opposed, and I'll ask Mayor Pro Tem Dodson to present the proclamation on behalf of the city.
So, first and foremost, we're going to miss this gentleman here at the city of Oak Ridge. I remember several years back, about 6 or 7 years back, he came to the city of Oak Ridge with a vision. He shared that. He has mobilized the community around that. We're looking at the downtown being more vital, more walkable, things like that's happening. He's also been engaged with the blueprint process. He's worked closely with his staff. He's worked closely with City Council and the Planning Commission. And currently, we're working on a comprehensive plan that's going to address some of the things that Mr. Blacius would like to have happen with the support of our community. So it's my honor and pleasure to present Wayne Blacius with a proclamation from the city of Oak Ridge. You need to say something.
Mr. Blazius, few words.
Thank you. I just very briefly, I took this job almost 8 years ago, and I didn't really intend to ever go back to government, and nor to move to Oak Ridge. And sometimes we don't know what we need. It's been a pleasure, and one of those things that I think somebody upstairs knows a lot more than we do, and I appreciate that the opportunity came along, and I thank you all for it. And somebody asked if I was moving back to Knoxville, and the answer is no. Thank you. Hope you'll keep me.
Wayne, one comment. I noticed at the Storytelling Festival on Saturday night, you were still hard at it. So thank you.
Next proclamation, Madam Clerk.
A proclamation honoring firefighter James Thursby on the occasion of his retirement from the city of Oak Ridge.
Move for approval.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. There are none opposed, and Councilman Hope will present the proclamation on behalf of the city.
Everybody says James, but I don't know you as James. Come on down here, Jim. All you guys are standing out there, come on in here. This is important for you guys to see. Me and Jim go back a long time. His father Frank and my dad were good friends, known each other a long time. Grown up in the community together, so it's a great honor for me to say congratulations to a 40-year career. That is an amazing feat. Appreciate your dedication to your craft and appreciate your dedication to your community. And on top of everything else, happy birthday, brother.
Today.
65 today. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Anything to say?
It's been a real honor to be a city employee here since 1985. As of June 27th of this year, it'll be the first that a Thursby has not been employed with the city of Oak Ridge since 1960. Wow. My dad started here first off in 1960 when the city became a city. I started here in 85. He retired in 91 with 30 years of service. I'm leaving with 40 years of service. So it's been a pleasure. It's going to be hard because I sure love my crew, but I've enjoyed it.
Well, we thank you for everything you've done and your family has done for the city of Oak Ridge and in sharing your father and you for all these many decades. And we're better people for it and a safer city.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Can I say a few words about Jimmy? I'm his father-in-law.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
No, you got to come up here. I'm sorry. Now, just for the record and verification, you got to state your name and your address.
All right, my name is Joe Rich. I'm the father of that beautiful girl back there. Jimmy's wife, Andrea. And my address is 90 Royal Troon Circle.
Yes, sir.
And I've been here since 1963.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. May I turn around?
Oh, absolutely.
My family's known Jimmy for most of his career here in the fire department. He did do a stint over in the Carolinas for a while. And when he got back, he joined the Oak Ridge City Police Department. We've known him and his daddy for some 35 years. And his father was a wonderful man, as is Jimmy. And I just want to say that we couldn't have asked for a better son-in-law than Jimmy.
So thank you very much, Jimmy.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, we're on the consent agenda. Councilman Hensley has asked for item E to come off the consent agenda. It will be taken up later when we go to resolutions. Is there a motion to approve the remaining items on the
Motion to-
consent agenda?
Second?
Sorry about that.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? And the consent agenda is approved. All right, Madam Clerk, next item of business.
Okay, under public hearings and first reading of ordinances, we have an ordinance to amend ordinance number 2 titled the zoning ordinance of the city of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, by amending the zoning map which is made a part of the ordinance, by changing the zoning district of Development Area 5 in Horizon Center Industrial Park off Renovare Boulevard, Roane County Control Map 021 parcel 002.04, containing approximately 96.5 acres from IND2 industrial to IND3 industrial, and the official public hearing will be held on second reading.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Blacius?
Thank you. I came out of retirement for this, Mr. Mayor. This is a rezoning request from IND2 to IND3 in the Horizon Center. The applicant has plans for their future phase, which will not be allowable under IND2 by their estimation of reading the ordinance. We don't have a lot of details about exactly what that is. I guess it's proprietary, but they believe that IND3 is required. The staff and planning commission recommend in favor of this. I'm happy to answer questions, and I also have Ms. Williams from our staff to answer additional questions if necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Blazius. Any questions for Mr. Blazius or comments? Ms. Smith?
Yeah, I have some heartburn about this proposal, and I have nothing against the company and the work they want to do. My concern is about placing another IND3 zone in the Horizon Center, which is surrounded by uses like the Black Oak Ridge Conservation Easement, greenways, public road, public streets, public access in general, and the Westwood subdivision isn't terribly far away. Also, the Forest Creek subdivision isn't terribly far away. And the IND3 zone is designed to basically be our zone for things which create public nuisances, such as noise and odors from industry, as well as significant hazards. Without the information from the applicant seems to be that they feel that the presence of radioactive materials would be a risk, would be a situation that requires the IND3 zone. But in fact, we have radioactive materials present in a lot of places in this community without that zone. The description of the IND3 zone is not about, it's not restricted to places that have radioactive materials, but rather situations where there are potentially significant risks from radioactive materials, which to my mind means things like, has to do with things like the consequences of potential accidents, as well as the presence of significant external radiation. I would not want significant external radiation or significant potential accidents in the Horizon Center, but I certainly don't want the kinds of nuisance uses that are written into that part of the ordinance being introduced there in the event that a company that goes in with some other purpose has to leave their property. So I have significant doubts about the idea of moving to Industrial 3. And at the Planning Commission meeting, I did not hear an explanation of the reasoning other than the potential presence of radioactive material, which I don't think is a reason for the IND3 zone. I think we need to keep it for stuff that's really that is truly a nuisance or presents a hazard to the neighbors. And I would hate to drive users away from things like the greenways or those kinds of nuisances. So, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Mr. Blacius? Any other comments?
The only thing I would add to Ms. Smith's comment is, as I think many of you know, and I know Ms. Smith does because she's been working with us, but city manager has asked us to investigate the idea of creating a new nuclear zoning district that can try to answer some of these issues. That's still a work in progress. Ms. Fitzgerald just recently secured a grant from the state for us to hire an expert consultant to help make sure that that district can be all the things that we need it to be while providing the greatest amount of public protection. But that's not in place right now. And as I said, we don't, because I believe it's proprietary, have detailed information on their needs, but their attorneys and technicians believed that IND3 was required, and that's, where we are.
Okay, so we don't have information on the reasons. I understood it's something to do with enriching uranium, which I don't think needs to be in a high hazard zone. So, but we'll see.
Mr. Hensley?
Yeah, this is a somewhat minor issue, but it affects long-term consideration of these areas. I'd like to stop calling that East Fork Road and call it East Fork Greenway, because that's really what it is.
Other comments or questions? The motion.
I got one quick.
Okay.
I was trying to gauge real quick. I
All
was saying, is the proposed zoning district consistent with the city's comprehensive plan in the request? And it says that, it goes through some thoughts. Yeah, the Horizon Center Industrial Park was still DOE property at the time the comprehensive plan was adopted and is not included in the land use map. And so we've since come up with a revised comprehensive plan, and we've had some conversations and some land use kind of conversation. Does this fit in what we've done now or what we're looking at now, our existing comprehensive plan?
Well, to the latter point there, the new comprehensive plan is a work in progress, and there are no recommendations from that at this time. However, the issue about whether it's consistent with the existing, although it's not on the land use map, there are many policies and narrative sections in the plan. I don't have it in front of me, I apologize, but that are supportive of this industrial development, and the intention for Horizon and Heritage have been our main industrial parks.
Okay, so I'll rephrase my question then. The city blueprint that we looked at, because I know we've done the comprehensive, we're working on the comprehensive plan, but I guess the city blueprint as kind of expressed and communicated by citizens?
Yes, sir, and again, the blueprint was not a land use map. It was a more aspirational document, but again, it recommended in favor of industrial development as well as, other things. So I think that it is broadly supportive, but there's not a map accompanying it as with the comprehensive plan.
I follow you now, thank you.
Mr. Hensley?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Mr. Heeman what, the background of this, and what conversations have you had with the requester, and how significant is this supposed radioactive material?
As mentioned, I really cannot comment on that. The company knows what use they're proposing, and they have proposed the zoning request based on what they feel like they're going to do. I don't have all the details on that, and even if I did, I don't know that I could disclose it at this point. I will say that the facility at Triso X, you've got IND3 right next to it, so it's not setting a precedent for this area. I would add that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions or comments? All right, the motion is to approve on first reading, and we're on the board.
I think there's someone from the public wanting to speak.
Well, just a second. All right, Mr. Coclosure. Thank you, Ellen.
Doug Colclasure, 103 Monticello Road. Thanks for the opportunity to make some comments on this. One of the details described when it was before the Planning Commission was that this was an isolated area. Yesterday afternoon, I was on the Greenway, came along the zone behind Area 5, 30 feet from the border. There were 10 young girls in a circle having snacks and drinks seated there on the Greenway. To call this isolated, the trail, there were 33 vehicles at the trailhead. Many of those folks were at Lambert Quarry, but many of them were down the Greenway in the zone where this property is. So to depict it as isolated today is not accurate, and 10 years from today, I can assure you it will not be isolated. Look at the population at the preserve. When that becomes 10,000, these people are going to look for a greenway, and this one's 3 miles from their house. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colclasure. Is there anyone here from BWXT? So would you state your name and who you're with and your address, please?
Hi, my name is Mike Tesser. I'm with BWXT. I was a program director, and my work address is here in Oak Ridge at 102 Mitchell Street.
All right, and what's your connection with this project?
My company has purchased the land, and we have plans for development of the property that requires an IND3 designation.
Well, why does it necessitate an IND3?
So it is related to a nuclear work, as you mentioned, the radioactive material, and it's going to be licensed by the federal government. The NRC license will do that. The overall risk is very low, as is consistent with the licensing in the current work that we do in other parts of the country.
Well, that begs the question, then why do you need an IND3?
So I don't know the specifics of the differences between IND2 and IND3. I can't speak to that myself, so I don't know the answer to that
Okay.
specific
I would
question.
suggest between now and final reading on this ordinance next month, that you have somebody here that, to the extent they can respond to that question.
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, this could be for either Mr. Blacius or Mr. Heeman. So how close is TriSoX to this particular area?
It's immediately to the northeast of this site, and that's Heeman had commented that the veterinary zone in 22 to INV3.
Okay.
It's the most adjacent.
You're on, sorry.
It is the most adjacent industrial property.
And they are IND3, okay. Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Yeah, I'd like to comment that TriSoX should not have to be IND3 either, because they're doing a low-risk activity that does not involve the kinds of risks that IND3 was created to cover. And I believe the reason that they are in IND3 was that they are coded as a chemical business, and our ordinance didn't have any place for chemical businesses except IND3. But as I pointed out at one point, soap manufacturing is a chemical business too. It's not, that's not, that code covers a lot of things, and it's not really necessary to be in this zone based on the nature of the work. It's in this zone based on the code that they fell under, which I think is inappropriate, so.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, the motion is to approve on first reading, and we're on the board. Ayes 4, 2 nays, and the resolution is adopted on first reading. Next ordinance, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to amend the comprehensive plan's land use plan for parcels 048.00, 049.00, 050.00, 051.00, 52, 53, 54, 55, and 56.00, Anderson County Tax Map 106A, Group B, located at the corner of Lafayette Drive and South Illinois Avenue, from R residential to B general business. And a public hearing will be held on official public hearing on second reading.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Blacius.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I want to note that this item and the following item on the agenda are related. I think you all are very aware that under state law, you cannot rezone a piece of property that is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The plan currently shows this area as residential, so this motion is to change the comprehensive plan from residential to business. If you note the map that's in your packet that was prepared and sent out by Ms. Williams, this property is surrounded on all sides, other than the woodland neighborhood, with business and industrial uses and or designations on the land use plan. And I'll get into in the next ordinance, in the next item, into a little bit more detail about the land use plan or the master plan that's proposed in the PUD, but that's the situation with regards to the comprehensive plan amendment that's requested. And
All right.
just recognizing that if you don't do the first one, you can't do the second one.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Smith?
Yeah, does a land use plan amendment now require an ordinance change? We used to do these, but with resolutions. And I'm just confused. I'm confused about that. So,
That's true. There was a time where we did them by resolution with the ordinance, and then there was a time where I put them both together. And then recently we decided to split them both apart, so we just did them both by ordinance. Since the rezoning has to be done by ordinance, we've done the land use plan amendment by ordinance as well.
okay,
It
thanks.
was just because we didn't want the first reading of the ordinance to take place prior to the land use amendment. So we're just doing them with both actions that require two readings.
It's more consistent. this way.
Yeah, just to be,
Sure.
Well,
yeah.
Mr. Dotson?
Yeah, Mr. Blacius, this came through Planning Commission on a vote. What was the vote on that? Do you remember?
8-0 in favor.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? The motion is to approve on first reading, and we're on the board. Ayes 5, 1 nay, and it is approved on first reading. Next item, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to amend ordinance number 2 titled the zoning ordinance of the city of Oak Ridge, Tennessee by amending the zoning map which is made a part of the ordinance by changing the zoning district of parcels 048.00 through 056.00, Anderson County Tax Map 106A, Group B, containing approximately 3.79 acres from R1 CMDO, Single Family Residential District in the Manhattan District Overlay, to UB2 PUD, Unified General Business District with a planned unit development overlay, and approving the associated planned unit development preliminary master plan, provided certain conditions are met, said parcels being located at the corner of Lafayette Drive and South Illinois Avenue. And again, official public hearing on second reading.
Move for approval. Moved and seconded. Mr. Blazius?
As noted in the previous, this is the rezoning request accompanying the plan amendment that you just voted in favor of on first reading. The request is for UB2 as the new zoning instead of R1C with a PUD overlay. The PUD allows certain flexibility within the zoning ordinance for things that are specific to this project and property. Their use is basically a small shopping area, and it is important to note that when the Planning Commission considered and approved this, which was, I believe...
7 to 1.
Okay, sorry. The Planning Commission put certain restrictions. In the case of a PUD, the Planning Commission can make conditions, and in other cases, as Mr. Hensley is always reminding us, it's conditional zoning, which we can't do. But in the case of a PUD, the Planning Commission acts basically as a BZA and can allow certain conditions. On the last page of your memo from Ms. Williams, you'll see the conditions approved by the Planning Commission that are basically related to access and screening, sidewalks, et cetera.
Mr. Tinsley?
Just a question. What we're approving here is what the planning commission recommended, right? Or what we're considering.
Yes, sir, that's what
which had
what's before you.
Two write-ins and two write-outs.
Other questions? Ms. Smith?
Yeah, question about the traffic on this. There's indication that the staff has had, the city engineering staff has had concerns about the traffic impacts of this development, and want to get into their concerns, but we also have the state ought to be involved in approving access on this corridor, as I understand it.
They're required to approve it if it goes forward.
Has a review been done at the state level?
I don't know the answer to that. I think that it needs to come after the action by the city, and then it's another filter. I think that the applicant is here. I don't know if Mr. Mills is here. Yes. So I think they might be both better able to answer specifics on that.
Well, I'll be happy to call them up, but the state of Tennessee isn't going to take official action on anything until it comes from the city. So that's, I mean, I'd be glad to hear from Mr. Mills if he wants to address that, but.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, and we sometimes have traffic studies done in connection with the development where there's concern about the traffic impact. And I haven't heard anything about a traffic study in this case having happened yet or coming. And I think we have a situation where we would not be looking at a new stoplight or anything because we have ample traffic controls in that part of the city.
Certainly not, yes.
But I'm wondering what would be done if a traffic study was done, how it would be carried out, and what kinds of results could come from it in a situation like this.
I believe that so far the city engineer has not required that, but again, Mr. Mills is here, and I might refer to him if he can add any more to that, or if you have specific questions, because that does come from Public Works, city engineer.
Yeah, I'd like to hear his perspective on the need for a traffic study and also what a traffic study might accomplish.
Brian Mills, acting city engineer. Yeah, recommendations from the traffic impact study would generally recommend intersection improvements. They look at timing and what the timing delays are at those intersections. So it would kind of look at the intersections and the layout of the area. Generally, those traffic impact studies are generated based on trip generations. And at this point, we didn't feel like we needed to have a traffic impact study and weren't sure what exactly the modifications could be to make those intersections any better, because like you said, there wouldn't be a traffic signal involved in that, and the right out, right in is kind of the only kind of other option for the kind of 2-1s, and then there's a full access that I think TDOT had approved several years ago for the full access moving on South Illinois Avenue.
Okay, when we have a number of right-in and right-out access, and also some that are right-in only around town. And it's my perception that most of on our thoroughfares, where we have right-in accesses, typically they have a deceleration lane to separate the right-in traffic on the busy street from the main traffic on the street. And I have doubts about whether we would add those kinds of lanes on a street that's already 7 lanes wide. So I'm just wondering what the
We have been discussing with the engineer and the developer kind of alternatives like having decel and excel lanes at those locations. I guess first with this going through the master plan, we're trying to get the approval of those before we get into the detailed design of the layout of those. There are some right-in, right-outs like at Main Street Lofts that have a decel lane, but then there are others kind of just to the west of that at the subway over there that don't have decel lanes going in and out of them. So I guess we have both cases of those even along the same kind of arterial street there.
Yeah, sometimes those are older businesses that didn't have the same review. But I was thinking of things like the East Side McDonald's has a deceleration lane, and several other places along that part of Oak Ridge Turnpike have a
Yeah,
decel
and we
lane.
are working with the engineer to kind of work on some of those detailed design elements on making modifications to the right-in, right-out to have either decel and/or accel lanes there at both of those locations, if approved.
Well, I have a lot of concern about this particular proposal, and the traffic impact is a significant part of that, because I see this as, that intersection is a complex one, Lafayette in Illinois and Scarborough Road, and is a pretty complicated intersection. It gets a huge amount of traffic. It's also a place that people get very confused sometimes, because it's hard to figure out sometimes what lane you want to be in to get off that road when you get to the place you want to turn off. And so I have concern about adding that kind of impact. That's a major concern, but related to that is concern that this is one of the few places in town where we've actually done a fairly serious evaluation of the plan for that location. The Illinois corridor plan that was done back in the 20-aughts was a fairly thorough analysis of the Illinois Avenue area with an awful lot of citizen participation. And the recommendation was to basically use this portion of the site only for residential or light office uses with no access other than neighborhood access for those light office uses. In other words, no access off the main streets. And we did have some significant development following that corridor study, particularly including the development which we now see as Panera and Aubrey's and Aldi on the other side, and that was done with a lot of planning and discussion, and city tax incremental financing. And I think one of the significant elements of it was relocating Quincy Avenue and turning it into Woodland Terrace East, which kept, I think that was something, the neighborhood was not at all pleased with that proposal. But I think on balance, what happened in that neighborhood was a really good solution for everybody. That traffic that used to cut through the Woodland neighborhood on Quincy Avenue stopped doing that. And the businesses have been fairly well isolated from the neighborhood. So people who live there can walk to the business, and they may complain that people park on their street they wish wouldn't, because they ought to be parking in the business parking lot. But on balance, it's been a good deal for the neighborhood as well as for the city. And the expectation after all that was that there would not be further development in the residential neighborhood, that the residential neighborhood would remain separate from the businesses at the fringe of it. This proposal would have the effect of bringing business traffic onto a tiny little street, Paris Lane, to access the business, and that to me is basically violating kind of an informal commitment to the neighbors who were involved in all the deliberation years ago. And I know it's 20 years ago and things change, but one of the things that's changed in the last 20 years is we have a lot more traffic in South Illinois than we did back then. So some of the things that were a big issue then are more significantly an issue now. And I feel like we need to stick with the plan that was approved back in those years, I realize that the city would make more money from commercial development at this site, make more taxes on it, than we would if if the same property were used for commercial housing, apartments, multifamily houses, whatever. But I think that that was what was in that master plan, not a master plan, but a neighborhood plan. And this isn't your thing, Brian, this is
Yeah, I was gonna say,
for
I'm
all
not,
of
I'm
us.
not aware of that and wasn't around at the end.
So,
That may be more
yeah,
discussion
so-
for the developer.
Yeah,
I think the challenge for the development on that corner there is trying to get access and trying to kind of get it where it works for everyone. I think we at the engineering department, at the planning commission meeting, kind of recommended not having a right-in, right-out on South Illinois Avenue. And I think the commission believed that they wanted to approve that access because it would minimize the flow of traffic through the neighborhood. We at the engineering department are not really sold that right-in, right-out is a safe intersection at this point, and still discussing that with TDOT and internally ourselves and the engineer to kind of make sure we can get a site distance issue and make it safe. Yeah, the challenge is kind of trying to provide access to that corner lot. And, you know, it has to go somewhere, either into the residential area or onto one of those heavily trafficked streets.
yeah, well, that was raised at the planning commission by you, and one of the commissioners pointed out that people who drove to this development from large parts of the city would likely drive south on South Illinois and want to turn left on Woodland Terrace, and then use Paris Lane to get to the new businesses, which would be a significant traffic flow on a street that is, first of all, not designed for much traffic, and secondly, still is a residential street.
Yeah, I will say, I don't think that was our recommendation on where traffic would go. I think that was some planning commission members stating that they would go down Woodland. I think engineering department believes they would come down South Illinois and use the full access entrance to come in there and not cut through the neighborhood, but that's our opinion of that.
Yeah, but crossing 3 lanes of traffic when it's heavy may deter.
Well, and it just depends on time of day. I mean, you're right, in the afternoons, there is heavy traffic through there for probably an hour and a half at least. But then most of the other time of the day, it's not that difficult of a movement.
Okay. Well, thanks for that perspective.
Mr. Hammond?
Yeah, you may want to hang around, but some very similar thoughts with the sense of, I mean, one, in agreement with what Councilwoman Smith has shared with a couple of additional thoughts, that people fly coming around that hill. And, I mean, that's a point where people are actually, I mean, well doing. If that light is green when you're coming down that hill, people are, this is a 45, 50, I don't even know what the speed limit
It's 45.
is. It's 45, but people are easily doing 55, 60 coming down through here through that green light. And so that's not a right in, right out. That's low. I wouldn't equate this to like a subway where people have already slowed, you've already entered into the city, you aren't coming off of a highway kind of arrangement would be my first thought with those entrances. Not to mention people trying to make a left with people coming around a curve coming into that. That's a very difficult space to navigate. And the other thing, I think to Councilwoman Smith's point, I do believe people will go through the community. And when I say people, I'm talking about, at least in this point, a specific group, and that is high schoolers and young adults. I know as several of the youth that I work with, they don't navigate this intersection at all. Parents tell them don't drive that, kind of go through the neighborhood. So I can see, if nothing else, that population. I know I tell my daughters, don't you try to pull into that space, go the safe route. So sometimes people and human behavior and those kinds of things can navigate people around what projections might be.
Yeah,
So I say all of that to
I think
say,
engineering agrees with you for the right in, right out on South Illinois. Those are our concerns of basically having enough sight distance and basically the traffic flow coming down that hill and the speed that people come down through there, and whether you can get a full traffic and the sight distance. Now, the engineer has provided a drawing that shows that they believe they can get 500 feet of sight distance, kind of back looking that direction up the hill. I don't believe the engineering department believes that it's clear access, and I think it's more like in a 350 degree range, and it's not as much as they're showing. And That's why we have been opposed generally to that right-in, right-out on South Illinois, and are okay with probably the full access movement, and maybe the right-in, right-out on Lafayette has a little bit of a side distance issue, but we don't think that it's as concerning as South Illinois.
Okay, and part of my brain freeze on this one, because I know the answer, but where would, like, the concerns you all have and/or the concerns we're expressing about the need for a traffic study, where does that fit in the process? And you all can answer that. If we vote yes, when might a traffic study be, or what does that look like? And I'm sure I know that, but it's.
I mean, you can make a recommendation or we can, but it generally would come kind of during the design phases when they're kind of implementing those offsite and/or improvements and kind of designing those intersections to function correctly.
Okay.
I might just add that Planning Commission's recommendation, I think. The Planning Commission's recommendation, which was letter A in that list, was to work with traffic engineering because obviously there's a lot of complexity here, and everybody felt that it was important that that be studied thoroughly with our engineering professionals and the developer to come to something that engineering staff felt comfortable with. So I believe that's why Planning Commission, putting words in their mouth, but I think that's why it was worded as such.
You good?
I'm good. I'd be interested in what Planning Commission, I know he just gave an echo, but
Mr.
certainly your all's thoughts.
Yes, that's exactly what we did, and, it's my understanding also that in the initial planning of this, the state had looked at this and did not have a problem. But the state later said, after the city showed concern, that they wouldn't approve anything that the city didn't approve. And so there has not been a traffic study yet, and I agree that with a PUD, we can make adjustments to that to make it safer if it is a problem. But,
I think the meeting that the engineer and the client had with TDOT, TDOT believed that they felt that the city was on board with it, and that meant if TDOT was on board with it, the city was on board with it, or vice versa. And I don't necessarily think that was the case because we didn't really believe that we were necessarily on board with it. We told them they needed to go to TDOT because it was a state route and submit for approval there. And then generally the process is TDOT contacts the city and asks us. We didn't get contacted with the city. They kind of issued a letter believing that the engineer said the city was on board with it, and we didn't have that chance to discuss it until afterwards. And then we had an online communication with the developer and the engineer afterwards and talked about maybe some alternatives and some modifications and still kind of looking at those.
so it sounds like when we get into this, that can happen, that you can work with the state to maybe put in deceleration lanes or something that makes these right-in, right-outs more to your all's approval. But relative to the through traffic in Woodland, several months ago, we gave the city manager authority to limit through traffic through Woodland. And we specifically had in mind this kind of situation. Now, at the time, it was buses we were talking about. But that agreement is not limited to buses. That agreement is whatever the city manager chooses to limit based on neighborhood issues.
Ms. Smith, another question?
Yeah, I disagree with Councilman Hensley's interpretation of the ordinance related to through traffic through Woodland. That was related to basically trucks and buses using Woodland as a way to get to some other part of the city. That's what through traffic refers to. And in this case, the concern would be that we'll have both customers and potentially also delivery vehicles and stuff who might choose to go in Woodland Terrace and then turn on Paris Lane to visit this development and visit businesses there. So that's a different thing than bringing trucks taking shortcuts through Woodland.
Well,
or what they think are shortcuts because they didn't discover that they get lost if they go through Woodland.
You can draw the line between trucks and buses and cars if you want to, but the permission we gave the city manager was traffic through Woodland.
Ms. Tisley,
I don't think so.
interrupt you. We can hear from the city attorney if that's all right with you, Ms. Henry.
Yeah. And I can double check it, but from what I remember is that we did make a change to the ordinance, and it was, previously it addressed no through trucks. And what we did was we expanded it to include your other larger vehicles, to address buses, because we did have, the rowing buses were one of the concerns, and other types of vehicles. But it was the larger buses using it for through traffic. And in this sense, if you've got somebody going through Woodland to access a business that is accessible through Woodland, that wouldn't be through traffic. I mean, they would be using, they'd be using a street that's accessible in Woodland to get to a business that's accessible in Woodland, just like using some South Purdue to come in and get to Aubrey's. But I will say, obviously, the safety of that access that you're talking about is not my department in any way. But if City Council does wish to add in the recommendation that staff had originally requested, that Planning Commission did not include, I mean, you can add that into the ordinance if you want to. You could do something along those lines, or you could add in the part that they were talking about, the easternmost right in, right out, or whatever you want to do to address, your concerns. You could add. You can certainly add that in tonight through an amendment, or we could further investigate it and come up with a recommendation between first and second reading on a substitute for consideration. We could do that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Dodson, I'd like to hear from the developer, if that's all right.
Can I respond to that comment?
Okay.
Based on what Reverend Hammond said, that kids will use Woodland to get to this development by driving through Woodland. What I heard you say that was driving through Woodland was not through traffic.
Right.
Sounds like through traffic to me.
All right. Mr. Chin.
Thank you, Council. Rick Chin, 101 Stonebridge Way. I represent the owners of all the property. I'm one of the owners, and there's other owners on this development. Where we are with this is we've received full approval from the Planning Commission. We're here for first and second reading for Council. Planning Commission approved the design as submitted. But honestly, if TDOT doesn't approve the right-in, right-out on Illinois Avenue, the right-in, right-out will not happen. What we're asking you to do is to conditionally approve that. We will work with city staff to be able to come up with a design that will ultimately meet their approval. If it needs to have a larger curb so that it makes it virtually impossible to make a left coming east into that property, we'll do that. If we need to have larger acceleration or deceleration lanes, we will do that. But what we'd like to ask for you to do is to approve the design as Planning Commission has, and let us work with TDOT and city engineering to come up with a design that meets everyone's approval. The reason we need those additional entrances is to alleviate traffic from the neighborhoods and to allow people to come in from the main arterial roads, Lafayette Drive and Illinois Avenue. We were given full access into the property back in 1983. So that's why they had the full access that lines up with Scarborough Lane. When we met with TDOT, we did adjust our original design to meet with all of their qualifications and criteria to keep the entrances, the right-in, right-outs, at least 200 feet away from the intersection.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Can you clarify the access you received in 1983? Who gave that access?
The City Council gave us full access to the corner lot that we had on, it has the Illinois Avenue address, to be able to have a property that had access to a road. So that access was given in 1983 with the contingent that it would be moved as far to the west as physically possible. Because we have accumulated and acquired additional property, we have moved that full access as far west as we possibly could to align with Scarborough Lane.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions, comments. Ms. Smith, you,
Oh, sorry.
okay. All right, the motion is to, okay, excuse me. I'm going to start over here, ma'am. Yes, come forward. I'm sorry, with the setup here, it's hard to see people in the audience.
Yeah, it is. All you see is an arm, too.
My name is Joy Henderson. I live at 103 Paris Lane, the property that you're talking about. I moved here in 1970. I moved into my house on Paris Lane in 1989, so I've lived there for like 36 years. I am really disappointed that the city would even fathom thinking about this. But we have a housing shortage, not a business shortage. An example, this property that's being developed has torn down 6 houses. If it gets the development, he's going to tear down 2 more. So that in itself is going to be, 8 houses just right there. And so we have enough businesses all over town that they can put whatever it is that they want. I do want to say when Panera's and Aubrey's moved in, they, I know, and it was a year or so after I was driving down that road, and there were 11 cars parked behind those 2 businesses that didn't need to belong there. They were people that were not parked in the parking lot and wanted an easy access. Well, if 11 people park on this street, the people that still live there now, which there's only like 9 houses left there now, that they won't have any place to park. So I don't think that's a good idea. I went to the Planning Commission meeting, and I thought 2 people voted against this, Jane Shelton and somebody else. And I could be wrong, but I was pretty sure 2 people voted against it. So I think, oh, and the other thing, when Ellen was talking about some decision about something 20 years ago, we know that you tape all these sessions. So if the city council said, and it probably is not on paper, but if they said that they were not going to do any more development in the neighborhood, somebody ought to go back about 20 years ago, and I don't know what that date would be, and listen to those tapes to see if city council did do that. Because if they don't do that, if they don't go back and read it and see what it says, it would be shame on you for doing what against the neighborhood. And there are people that pass through this neighborhood, because I've watched them. I followed them. They drive right by my house, and they go right into Hendricks Creek. And it's not during school hours. It's during other times. So anyway, that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Colclaser.
Thank you for the opportunity to make a few more comments. Doug Colclaser, 103 Monticello Road. Routinely, the discussions are around housing, the lack of housing. Almost never is it commercial, the needs for commercial. We have a residential district that meets the criteria: convenience to shopping, convenience to city services, within walking distance of the largest employer in Oak Ridge, Y12, Union Valley, employers Ucor, and we're taking this property that's housing, that we had a big meeting back in July of 2024 where housing, the idea of building housing at ED6, 6 miles from community services, and we're going to rezone it for restaurants. Is that smart growth? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colclaser. All right, any other questions or comments? The motion before us is adoption of the ordinance on first reading, and we're on the board. Four ayes, 2 nays, and the ordinance is approved on first reading. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, Title I, titled General Administration, Chapter 2, titled Miscellaneous, to delete Section 1-201, titled Administrative Organization of the City, and replace it with a new Section 1-201, titled Administrative Organization of the City, to change the name of the Community Development Department to the Planning and Development Department, to change the name of the Personnel Department to the Human Resources Department, to identify which departments are supervised by the Deputy City Manager, and to clarify the placement of City Court and the Legal Department within the organization.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Heeman?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is a requirement in Article 5, Section 5 of the Charter that the city manager put forth a administrative plan, or what I would now call an organizational structure for the city. And this is an updated organizational structure that also takes into consideration those name changes that were recently approved.
All right, any questions or comments? City Manager? Seeing none, the motion is to approve on first reading. Ayes 6, no nays, and the ordinance is approved on first reading. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to amend ordinance number 13-2024, which ordinance provides for a budget and appropriations for municipal purposes for the fiscal year which began on July 1st, 2024, by adopting a budget and adopting appropriations by amending said appropriations.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Bates?
Hi, Council. For your consideration, we have an ordinance to amend fiscal year 25 ordinance. There are two that were brought forth, one for $735,000 for the general fund, the others from the schools of $1.307093.21. We talked about this in the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Bates? Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Ayes 6, no nays. Ordinance is approved on first reading. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
Under final adoption of ordinances, you have an ordinance to provide revenue for municipal purposes for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025, by imposing a tax on all property within the city, fixing the rate of the tax, adopting a budget, and adopting appropriations, and a public hearing is required.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anyone wishing to address council in the public hearing on the fiscal year 2026 budget? Look to my left, look to my right. No hands, so like a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. All right, so we are back on the final adoption of the 2026 budget. Any final comments, Mr. Heeman or Ms. Bates?
Yes, sir. We've got a few slides that I think we can pull up. There's one slide in particular that I do want to make mention of. I'm not going to roll through all of these. I believe it's about 3 in, 2 or 3 or, 3. I do want to make mention of the proposed revisions since our last meeting, and I'll ask Ms. Bates to walk you through these.
So there are three main changes that were from the first iteration that you've seen in the budget. The first one is from the city manager's office. It's $18,400. That one was simply because interns were left off for the city manager's office, so we've added them back to the budget. The next one is for marketing and tourism at $56,755. That's actually Explore Oak Ridge. We received their proposal. We didn't get it in the budget on time, so the original budget that you saw reflected the amount that they received last year, and they've asked for an increase this year. And the last one is the PILT from the electric department. I'm not quite sure what happened with that. It was 1.475 originally. For whatever reason, it entered the budget this year at 1.45, so we had to increase it by another $25,000 to make it the same match. Those are the three changes.
Any other adjustments, Mr.?
No, sir.
All right, any questions?
We do have the substitute ordinance that reflects all the changes.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
I know. It's one step at a time here. Okay, so no questions, no one for the comments, so we'll need a motion to substitute the budget amendment.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All right, so now we're back on the budget for fiscal year 2026 as adopted. Any final comments or questions? Seeing none, we're on the board. The motion is to approve on final reading. Ayes 6, no nays, and the budget for 2026 is adopted, fiscal year 2026. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
Back to the other one. An ordinance to amend Title 13, titled Property Maintenance Regulations of the Code of Ordinances, City of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, by creating a new Chapter 7 titled Slum Clearance in order to reduce the hazards of fire, accidents, or other calamities, lack of ventilation, light, or sanitary facilities, or due to other conditions rendering such dwellings unsafe or unsanitary, or dangerous or detrimental to the health, safety, and morals, or otherwise inimical to the welfare of the residents of Oak Ridge, and providing for a penalty for enforcement.
Move for approval.
Moved and seconded.
Yes, so there were no changes between first and second reading. And again, this is just adoption of the Tennessee Slum Clearance Law, which gives the city additional enforcement mechanisms for blighted structures, with the added benefit of being able to use a collection mechanism of adding it to the property tax bill.
Thank you, Mr. Rackard. Mr. Tinsley?
Yeah, just a very simple question. How does the city get access for inspection typically? For inspection, how does typically get access?
Well, a lot of times you can view the violation from the street. Sometimes the neighbors will allow you to go on the property. Sometimes the property owner will allow you to go on the property as well. If the property owner does not, we have a mechanism to get an administrative search warrant.
I noticed in there was I believe 5 neighbors can issue a formal complaint. Does that give us access?
No, that's just a process by which, neighbors can complain. Code enforcement is very much, I think, a complaint-driven process anyway, though I'm sure they do go around and see violations as well, but, people can do the complaints. But the complaint itself is not what gives the city the right to go on the property. The city does have the right to go on the property to do the inspection, but a lot of times you might have a property owner who is uncomfortable with that. And if they are, the city's not going to get into some type of altercation with the property owner. Right. We'll go through a legal process of getting an administrative search warrant and have a police officer come back with the code inspector.
I just remember in particular the Applewood apartments and getting access to the inspection to inspect the apartments was a real big deal. And once we got access, then the city could make a difference in that area. And so it sounds like that problem hadn't been thoroughly cured.
It's very rare that the city has to do the administrative inspection warrant. I mean, we did one last month, but it's been quite a few years since we've had to use that process. We can.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Ayes 6, no nays. Excuse me, and the ordinance is approved on final reading. Next ordinance, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to amend ordinance number 27-85, titled A Personnel Plan for Employees of the City of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, as amended, by replacing all references to Personnel Director with Human Resources Director to reflect the change in job title for this position, and by replacing all references to Personnel Department with Human Resources Department to reflect the change in name for this department.
Move to accept.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Alt?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I don't have anything to add from our first reading, other than people have already started calling me the HR director, so it's going to be kind of awkward if we don't approve this.
You changed the nameplate on your door?
Not yet.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
Yeah. No, I would never be so presumptuous.
I didn't think so. That's good. All right, any questions, comments? If not, the motion is to approve on final reading. Ayes 6, no nays, and it is approved. Thank you, Mr. Ault. Having concluded the adoption and approval of ordinances, we are back now on resolutions, and the first resolution will be item E from the consent agenda. Madam Clerk?
A resolution authorizing a professional services agreement with McGill Associates, PA Incorporated, Knoxville, Tennessee, for the development of a Recreation and Parks Master Plan in fiscal year 2026 in an amount not to exceed $100,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Hensley?
Yeah, I wanted to add something, and I guess I'd like to make a motion to add this. It's in the letter from John Hedrick to Randy Heeman. And I would start my statement at the end of the first paragraph under background. I'd like to add that the master plan and the new comprehensive plan will include a recommended greenbelt overlay on all the DOE reservation open space, waterfront, and forested area not currently dedicated to ORNL, Y-12 National Security, TVA Small Modular Reactor, Haw Ridge, Clark Center Park, and/or the Black Oak Ridge Conservation Easement. The city of Oak Ridge should be included in all future land transfer negotiations.
Second for discussion.
All right, moved and seconded. Okay. Mr. Hensley, that's quite an amendment for us to take up tonight.
I agree.
You know, I'm not sure we need to, well, go forward with that if before we have time to think about it or ask questions. Mr. Hedrick, have you got any comments initially on that?
I would just say that the purpose of this process is to develop a master plan for the Recreation and Parks Department for the city. So inclusion of that kind of direction would be part of the planning process rather, I would think, than a directive at the beginning of the process as part of the contract. That would be something that we would want to vet with public input and part of the review process by the consultant, I would think, as part of the plan, just like any other recommendation for the final document.
You know, my approach here is I keep bringing this up in planning commission meetings and city council meetings, that the 20,000 acres that is inside the city limits is one of the greatest assets that this city has, and we just keep ignoring it. And in my opinion, it needs to be addressed because we've got the best example of what happens if we don't address it with the Carbon Rivers issue. They buy a piece of property from DOE, they start using it based on the FIR zone, and we have to come back and suffer the consequences because we didn't have a zone in place. And so we can always, if we put a greenbelt zone on that, we can always change it in the future. We can always consider a rezoning, and we can always make it.
To the best of my knowledge, a Recreation and Parks Master Plan would not necessarily include zoning ordinance issues. It would be more an overall view of how the property would be used. The plan might make recommendations to change zoning in certain areas. But again, typically that would be part of the process of developing the plan, including the public input process.
That's why I included the comprehensive plan in my statement. And that I think we should address that. And I kind of see that in the comprehensive plan process, we've got small areas identified, and we've asked people what they like in those small areas. But the biggest area in this city is not being looked at. And that concerns me greatly because I see what the city of Denver did. The city of Denver put a park all the way around their city. We have miles of waterfront that's out there untouched. And if it starts slipping away a piece at a time, we have done a great injustice to the future of this city and the country.
Mr. Hope?
Are we getting two different things confused here? The Recreation and Parks Master Plan is not our master plan or our comprehensive plan. And the statement that Mr. Hensley's made, in my mind, is more towards the comprehensive master plan statement. What you're looking at, if I don't correct me if I'm wrong, John, you're looking at a study to build a park and recreation master plan for the community, correct?
That's correct, and this is a resolution to approve a contract with a consultant to
Just work
create
on
that
that
study.
process.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Yeah, I see it as inappropriate to tell the contractor what they should include in their product. That seems like a strange thing that we shouldn't be doing in a contractual process. And that's, all the substance of your recommendation aside, it doesn't make sense to tell the contractor what their report is supposed to say. That's not right, so.
Well,
Mr. Hensley?
what I'm basically doing here is throwing it on the table because I'd like to hear some direction coming from council about how we're going to address this particular issue. I don't care if we don't address this tonight. I'll withdraw it if we have to, but I would like to see it put somewhere. And it says right in the letter that John wrote, regional and national recreation trends to provide a guide for future development of the recreation and park system in Oak Ridge. Are we saying that the 20,000 acres can't be part of our parks and recreation system? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, sir, this is a planning process, and certainly that could be taken into consideration, but the resolution tonight is to award a contract to the consultant. So I don't think that we want to direct their action at this time. We want to give them a scope of work to try to meet, I believe is the intent of the resolution this evening.
Well, I'm open to suggestions about how we get this into our comprehensive planning process for sure. I don't see it happening right now.
Mr. Hensley, I understand your concern, and I share it. I simply don't see this as the appropriate vehicle to do that. This is not part of the comprehensive planning process. This study will go into that process based on the recommendations that are made. But as Ms. Smith said, it's just inappropriate to put in a contract exactly what you demand the consultant to put in the final report. I mean, I think there'll be plenty of time to talk about your concern, and certainly it is a legitimate one, to do it in a work session related to larger, broader projects, but not on this particular contract. I mean, this is, quite frankly, I think we need to get started on this. I think if I was, I would just predict that if your amendment is approved and it's made a part of the contract, that the consultant won't sign it. And I wouldn't blame the consultant.
Well, I will gladly agree to move this to a work session and withdraw my motion if we'll put it on a work session agenda.
Oh, you've got absolute right to ask for that.
Okay, well, I withdraw my motion.
All right. Let's see.
Second or agree?
You got a second on that.
Okay, all right. So,
Thanks for talking about it.
all that having been said, we are back on the motion to approve the contract, and we're on the board. Ayes 6, no nays, and contract is approved. Thank you, Mr. Hedrick. All right, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing a professional services agreement with Dr. Matthew Jinks, Maryville, Tennessee, to provide veterinary services at the Oak Ridge Animal Shelter in an amount not to exceed $111,300.
Moved and seconded.
Mr. Mayor, Council,
Yes, sir.
Dr. Jinks has been our contracted vet at the animal shelter since 2013. Our current professional services agreement with him was signed in 2019. It is set to terminate at the end of this month. We placed a RFQ out for this professional services agreement at the beginning of May. Dr. Jinks was the sole respondent to that. We would like to enter into a new professional services agreement with him. It'll be beginning July 1, ending June 30th of 2016, or 2026, I'm sorry, with 5 additional one-year renewal term options. We also request that the city manager have authorization to renew those if budgeted funds are available. Dr. Jinks will receive a base compensation of $7,000 per month with supplemental compensation of $75 per spay or neuter performed, which would be a total of $111,300 annually.
Questions for Captain Tedford? Seeing none, the motion is to approve, and we're on the board. Ayes 6, no nays, and the professional services contract is approved. Thank you, Captain Tedford. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing an amendment to the professional services agreement with Kimley Horn and Associates Incorporated, Nashville, Tennessee, for engineering services related to the development of plans for Phase 3 of the Oak Ridge Signal Timing Optimization Program, to extend the term of the agreement and to increase compensation by $17,800 for a new not to exceed amount of $460,800.
Move for approval.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Flynn.
Okay, we've moved over to Illinois Avenue now. We've got the turnpike going. This is the first of a couple of items on the CMAQ 3 project, which is Illinois Avenue. We're replacing the traffic signals there also. This amendment does 3 things. It takes care of a couple of overruns in cost. It takes care of a new item that TDOT added to the requirements for the consultant after the consultant's contract was written. And it also does a time extension, and we really don't know exactly what happened when we wrote this thing up, but it was for a very short period of time. So what we're asking to do, of course, is to extend the term of their contract to run concurrent with the construction project. So anyway, I waited until I had, a little bit of, enough stuff here to do in one memo.
Any questions regarding this contract? All right. Motion is to approve, and we're on the board. Ayes 6, no nays. Resolution is approved. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing an amendment to the agreement with the Tennessee Department of Transportation, finalizing the city's award of Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement, CMAQ, program funds for Phase 3 of the city's Signal Timing Optimization Program, to add local funding of $87,300 and to extend the term of the grant through October 2028.
Move for approval. Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Flynn.
And this is the agreement that pays for the engineering and the construction. The contract as written expires at the end of this month, so we need to extend it. We are going to extend it through 2028, which is when we think we probably will be able to have this project designed, bid, and constructed. We also are adding some local funding because of some differences in what was in the original grant contract and the actual obligated amount. So what we will do when we get to a bid phase is that we will, I guess, basically gather up the shortages, and then we'll go back to the TPO and ask for an amendment for extra funding. That's what we did with the project that we just bid, and we were successful at getting the money that we needed.
And for everyone's information, why don't you tell everybody what the TPO is?
The TPO is the Transportation Planning Organization. There are 6 of them in Tennessee. They are somewhat the liaison between the local agencies. There are 13 agencies that participate with Knoxville. So they are the liaison, if you will, between those agencies, ourselves included, and TDOT.
All right, any questions for Mr. Flynn? Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Ayes 6, no nays, and Resolution is approved. Next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution awarding a contract to Viking Painting LLC, La Vista, Nebraska, for rehabilitation and repainting of the Wisconsin Avenue elevated water tank in an amount not to exceed $537,200.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Flynn.
This is an item to do some repair work on a tank that we've got that's leaking. We've got 7 elevated tanks. We rotate around inspecting them. This particular one, like I said, is actually started to leak. We'd like to go ahead and drain it, strip it, paint it, do the repairs on the inside of it, and we've also got some repairs on the external ladders, safety equipment, that kind of thing. And then, of course, TDEC also inspects these, so this is also, in addition to a maintenance item, it is a regulatory item.
Mr. Flynn, have we done business with Viking Painting before?
The city has not, our consultant has.
Okay. This is as long as somebody's got a track record with the,
Yes, our consultant is comfortable with them.
okay, because I mean, does
Pardon me?
raise a question, it does raise a question when you put it out for bid and there's only one company that responds and it's out of state. So, but anyway, just as long as they come with recommendations.
Yeah, like I said, we've done a lot of work with our consultant over a long period of time. He is comfortable with him, and we're comfortable with him,
And why don't you, who's the consultant?
John King with CTI.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hensley?
Yeah, the only comment is they're called Viking Painting, and we're talking about getting in there and doing a lot of welding on pits and fixing the leak in the upright and fixing the ladders and stuff. You're confident this company can also do that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, the motion is to approve. I-6, no nays. The resolution is approved. Thank you, Mr. Flynn.
You are welcome.
A resolution awarding a contract to Dark Horse Vegetation Management LLC, Sunbright, Tennessee, for tree pruning, tree removal, and brush control services in an amount not to exceed $1,147,428 for fiscal year 2026.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Cross?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, for your consideration, we have a recommendation to award to Dark Horse Vegetation Management the vegetation clearing for this next fiscal year, July through June. We just completed a 6-year contract with Kendall. They had initially been awarded a 2-year contract with 2 additional 2 years that were approved previously by the council to renew. And after putting it out to bid, we had bids from both Kendall and from Dark Horse. Dark Horse has been, I've worked with them previously at PEC, their predecessor, Galloway Construction. They are currently doing work for Lenore City, working for La Follette Utilities. They also do power line construction with another division. But they are the overall low bidder. The zone work, they're a little over $44,000 cheaper for the zone work, which will be east of Illinois Avenue. We do Oak Ridge in 2 different zones that we do every other year. And then we also have a component for hourly work, and they're a little bit higher on the hourly work, but overall, they're the overall low bidder. And it will be our recommendation to approve them.
All right, and this contract was reviewed by the Budget and Finance Committee.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Mr. Hensley?
Yeah, just one question. On page 125 of their response, is this an example of a contract, or is it true that this company, Dark Horse, is using the equipment from Duluth, Georgia?
That's W.A. Kendall and Company.
Yeah, it says, of the city of Duluth, Georgia, agrees that if this bid is accepted as hereby provided, it will furnish all labor, materials, supplies, tools, equipment necessary to perform the work and services described in the invitation for bid.
Yes, sir. That's W.A. Kendall and Company of Duluth, Georgia.
Okay.
Kendall is located in Duluth, Georgia.
Gotcha.
And Dark Horse is in Sunbright.
My bad.
Up here,
Thank you.
up here in Morgan County. Not a problem at all.
Start a little strange.
Yes.
All right, Any other questions for Mr. Cross? The motion is to approve. Ayes 6, no nays, and the resolution is approved.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Cross.
A resolution approving a 2.75% increase on standard service local retail electric rates effective October 1st, 2025, and the associated amendment to the power contract between the city and the Tennessee Valley Authority to implement said rate adjustment.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Cross?
Yes, this is for a 2.75% rate increase to become effective October 1st of this year, 2025. We presented a long-range plan that had been prepared by Patterson Dewar engineers back at our February work session, and this would be consistent with Phase 1 of that plan, the first 3 years, where we're doing more replacement poles, replacement of old conductor, the copper conductor, and building up towards doing in Phase 2, and that's coming in a couple more years, where we will begin doing transformer replacements at substations, and that kind of thing. It'll be higher dollars then on down the road. But we brought in Chris Mitchell of Chris Mitchell Management Consultants, who also presented to City Council at our April meeting, and his recommendation is a 2.75% overall, and that affects all standard service, which is equally across all rate classes. So it would be our recommendation to do this effective October.
Ms. Smith?
Yeah, I have a couple questions about the details.
Yes, ma'am.
And the LRA rate request spreadsheet
Yes, ma'am.
shows that the 2.75% would apply basically across the board. All customers would get the 2.75%, and it would apply to total retail revenue, which, as I understand it, includes does that include the TVA fuel use surcharge and so forth, or is it just our local costs?
Yeah, there's actually 4 different ways that the consultant can select to do this. One would be on distribution revenue, and that's methodology number 1. If it's done that way, it can produce a different percentage across the different rate classes. The second one is based upon total retail revenue less the fuel cost, and there's a fuel cost component that goes in, and that also can produce a percentage, an equal percentage, except for the fuel cost.
Okay.
So in order to make it across the board evenly percentage-wise, that's methodology number 3. And then, of course, you can do it on a custom manner where you can try to direct to impact one customer class differently than the others. And so typically, we would recommend to do it evenly across the classes.
Yeah. So this would be a 2 3/4% increase on everybody's bill over what it would be if we didn't have the increase.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that's one thing I wondered about. The other thing is at the top of that page, it has under SMW classes, which would be paying this increase, but it also has B and C classes, which would not be paying this increase. What are the B and C classes?
B and C classes are over 5,000 kW, which that is your largest industrial. And those typically, you have to do a special rate study through TVA to consider doing those, and TVA typically gets involved in those. And that would be done through a custom adjustment, and it takes a longer period of time to do that type of rate change.
Okay, are we likely to pursue something like that?
Perhaps in the future, I think we probably should consider that, I think so. But this one would be just like the one last year, would be just a flat % across the standard classes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Hammond?
Quick question, what kind of notifications are given for rate increases?
It's required by TVA to give 30 days notice, and of course, being effective in October, we would make sure we do it before October 1.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Ayes 6, no nays. Resolution is approved. Thank you, Mr. Cross.
Thank you all.
A resolution approving an updated compensation plan effective July 6, 2025, which implements a minimum 3% cost of living adjustment, reclassifications, new job positions, and professional development programs for the fire department and police department, all as incorporated into the approved FY 2026 budget.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Alt.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. So earlier tonight, we approved the budget on second reading, so this is actually starting to get work done on that. In that budget proposal, we called for a 3% cost of living increase to all of our pay grades, as well as adjustments that we've previously discussed at other meetings regarding the police department and the fire department pay. This item will update the spreadsheet that's attached to show all of the new pay rates with those percentage adjustments included.
Any questions for Mr. Alt? All right, the motion is to approve, and we're on the board. Ayes 6, no nays. Thank you.
On the next item, too.
Oh, you got the next item?
A resolution approving the classification plan for fiscal year 2026.
Oh, okay, sorry. Moved and seconded. All right, Mr. Alt.
Yes, sir. So we just approved the compensation plan, which outlines our pay grades throughout the city. The classification plan is sort of its sister document. It doesn't get used quite as much, but what the classification plan does is outlines every position in the city and its exempt status under the Fair Labor Standards Act. So this is updating that document for any jobs that were changed over the course of the previous fiscal year, as well as changes that are included in the budget, such as those new police and fire positions and the new capital project management positions that are being added under the city manager's office.
Any questions for Mr. Alt on this portion of the plan? Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Ayes 6, no nays, and the resolution is approved. Thank you.
A resolution approving the City of Oak Ridge Strategic Framework Action Plan for fiscal year 2026.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Heeman?
Mayor and Council, this is the updated version of your strategic plan for the year. We've given you a budget that will help us deliver what's in this plan, and we typically like to adopt the plan and the budget at the same time, so this is your opportunity to adopt the plan.
Mr. Hensley?
Yeah, over on page 162, to follow up on my earlier comments, I assume, and from our past conversations with you, Mr. Heeman, that this will include this, with this understanding per past conversations, this will include the DOE reservation open spaces, the unspoiled waterfront, and the forest.
This will include us coming back with recommendations on how to address the FIR issue, not necessarily a staff recommendation that they all be one thing or another, but how to address that issue in general. And, you know, what happens to it from there is a kind of a policy discussion for council.
Thank you.
Any other comments, Mr. Heeman? No, sir. Okay. Any questions or comments for Mr. Heeman? Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Ayes 6, no nays, and the resolution is approved. All right, we are now on appearance of citizens. Citizens shall be permitted to address council about matters that are not on our formal agenda tonight. Any citizen wishing to do so will raise your hand and proceed to the lectern, and after recognition, state your name and address and the purpose of your appearance before council. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes and shall relate to matters of city business. They shall not generally result in a formal response or action tonight at the time of presentation, because in most cases, neither council nor the staff will be prepared to respond effectively. However, I may answer the questions, direct the city manager to do so, or direct the city manager to work with citizens to effect resolution of the matter. Statements that are purely political in nature will not be allowed, such as campaign speeches or announcements of candidacy for office, nor will announcements of a civic or social event that is unrelated to city business. Are there any members of the audience that wish to address council? Yes, sir.
Hi, George Lewis, 110 Clifton Circle, Oak Ridge. We have been working with city staff for well over a year now on an issue dealing with noble metals in our neighborhood. And we're not getting anywhere. Basically, the issue has gotten much worse. Clearly, noble metals is not meeting the zoning requirement, which is IND1. They do have an exception to IND1, but the exception to IND1 clearly says they will not operate a junkyard. It clearly says that they will operate within the bounds of IND1. It clearly says that they will operate using containers and pallets until they can construct their building, which was many, many years ago. And they were given 6 months to do that. They constructed the building. They never moved into it. So they are operating a junkyard right out in the open, right behind much of our neighborhood, creating a huge amount of noise. We have been working with Randy. We've been working with Wayne. We've been working with several other city staff, but we're just not getting anywhere. Don't know where we go next.
Mr. Heeman, you have any response? Ms. Packard?
I'd like to suggest that we put this on a work session and we can update you. There has been a compliance requirement. I believe there's been an action submitted by Noble Metals to rectify the situation, and they're working on it, but we can give you an update on that at a future work session if that's acceptable.
All right.
We have the letter from Noble Metals for that action, which spelled out several different actions for things like putting down gravel and limiting the speed limit and putting in a buffer of trees and limiting the height from which they can drop the material into their containers. I'm sorry, but there is nothing in that letter that will address this issue. The issue is they are operating an illegal junkyard right behind our neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Clinton. Mr. Hope?
Mr. Lewis, definition of junkyard being, I mean, I know Noble Metals is a scrap metal business. To me, junkyard would be, mostly automotive, that kind of stuff, salvage yard type deal.
I've looked up the definition of the junkyard several times. Definition of a junkyard and a scrapyard is basically the same thing. The junkyard is a U.S. definition. A scrapyard is more considered a British definition, and it is a place for the collection of materials to sort them out for repurposing and recycle.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's pretty much what it is.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes, Mr. Heeman, would you mind supplying us in an email or whatever with regards to some of the issues that Mr. Lewis has brought up and the criteria that make what this is supposed to be what it is? I would like to know, be able to read through that and see if we are or they are in compliant with this, and then possibly have that before the work session, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
I have one more question for him, and
sure.
I apologize, and I apologize if I missed it, but how long have you and the community been working? You expressed the concerns. You say you've I've been working with city officials. This is going nowhere. Can you give me a sense of the time frame of when the concerns were raised, when you all noticed them, that kind of thing?
The concerns were raised many years ago through reporting incidents to the police, to have the police come out and get them to muffle the noise, but that went nowhere. And most recently, I'm sorry, I don't have the
Sure.
exact dates
Just
on the
some rough
top of my
stuff.
head, but maybe a year and a half to 2 years ago, there was a motion by Noble Metals to get another lot. And in that lot, they were going to expand their business to do, instead of just metal, they were also going to do building materials. And they were going to use that lot to dump out the building materials and sort out the metal. And, well, because of the changes in the way that the zoning is done now and the way that the neighbors have to be contacted, our neighborhood was actually contacted this time. Back when the first zoning exceptions were done for Noble Metals, we were not contacted because all you had to do was put up a sign. Well, now if you're within a certain, what, 200 feet or 300 feet, then the neighbors have to be contacted. So that reinitiated the working with the city. So we started submitting, well, we got that one cut down. So they could not use the third lot they wanted to. But by the way, they're still bringing in all those dumpsters with all the construction material and metals. I don't quite know how they're sorting them out, but it's not on the lot they weren't allowed to sort them out on. But we started submitting complaints through the codes, the city portal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to date, we've probably submitted 50, 60 complaints. Okay. And basically, the only thing that happens with our complaints now is Lisa just goes in and marks them as duplicate and closes them. I mean, we're not contacted or anything.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that.
Mr. Hensley?
Yeah, just, one of my very good friends, Mike Bundy, talks to me about this a lot.
Yeah,
And he's-
Charlie, we used to live in the same
and
neighborhood.
One thing that I've mentioned to him is that, and this, gotta be careful I don't get over into the attorney stuff, but there's the definition of moving to a nuisance, and also if the nuisance gets worse. And in my opinion, from what I've observed personally, off the record, Noble Metals has got worse. But I know that some of the people there have been there since before Noble Metals was there.
Including
And
myself.
But others have essentially moved to a nuisance. But if you've got evidence that it got worse, that would be, with an attorney, if it got worse, you'd have a very strong case to limit their operations to whatever it was when people moved there.
Okay, let me be forthright here. We've got a lot of evidence. We presented that to the city. And we really do not want to go the attorney route. I mean, we're either gonna have to go after the city or go after Noble Metals. That's not what we want to do.
Expensive.
We would really like the city to rectify the situation. There's plenty of land that the city has access to that is more appropriate for this business. The city is the one that has let this get out of hand over all of this time. And then Noble Metals changed hands. And I kind of understand, I mean, I've never discussed this with Randy or Wayne, but I kind of understand that, well, since it's changed hands and they were already doing this, that kind of puts the city in a really awkward position. Well, now we're going to come down and lower the hammer on going back to a zoning exception that was approved many, many years ago, and we're going to enforce that on the new owner of the property, and we never did on the old one, opening up for a lawsuit. We're trying to avoid that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lewis. We'll be back in touch. Advise him when it's going to be on the work session. Okay, any other citizens wishing to address council? All right, the next item, elections, appointments, announcements, and scheduling. Anybody have anything?
I have one announcement.
Mr. Hope.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I mentioned it to the rest of council. Last week, me and city manager and Matt Tedford with the police department had the absolute remarkable experience of meeting 4 young ladies from Robertsville Middle School in the TSA program. They have won the state competition with their program this year, and it's improvements and design work of the animal shelter. So very appropriately timed. They are taking this same program to the national level. They're going to go in the national competition, which is in about 3 weeks, and it's in Nashville this year. The national competition is in Nashville. So these 4 young ladies put on a beautiful program, beautiful presentation, extremely knowledgeable. They had done their research. You saw many people in that room, very impressed with them. And I just want you all to know that these young ladies did a heck of a program, and they are representing Oak Ridge very well. And so I just wanted to make sure we mentioned that.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Other than the requests that have already been made for new business items or future briefings, is there anything else?
Yeah, I have
Ms.
one
Smith.
other. I think we've been hearing a lot recently from people concerned about sediment control from various land disturbing activities. And it's, a variety of different locations around town people have been complaining about. I'd like a briefing on the stormwater controls and the challenges associated with the sediment control. So,
Okay. Let's put that on our list. Okay? Anything else? All right, Mr. Heeman, your report.
All right, Mayor, thank you. I'll be brief. Did want to quickly mention how well Mr. Hope's presentation went when we were out west. That is not a photoshopped photo. That is the way it was, and he did a great job out there talking about us all being open for business, and I want to thank Lauren for her work on that sign, and we had nameplates that also had that on it, so it did really, really well. We had the ribbon cutting for Arano last week, and the comment there from Jean-Luc, Oak Ridge is where the history meets the future. It was a great comment. Not quite as good as great things happen in Oak Ridge every day, but it was pretty good comment. Triso-X is moving dirt on their site. That's another one of the sites where we've had some sediment issues that were well noted, and they've done some rock blasting out there as well. Wildcat Manufacturing received $225,000 donation from UT Battelle, an additional $250,000 from ORNL to work alongside the students, and I think they bought some new equipment with that. So it's great to see community support of Wildcat Manufacturing. The Corridor Development Corporation met last month. I will just tell you that Dave Beck lit a fire under us in our meeting, and we are on a 45-day sprint to focus on several main areas, including land, pilot, and things of that nature. So I'd like to report back on that as soon as those groups finish. Also want to say we've got an event for the comprehensive land use plan that you're invited to. Internship program has been fantastic. We've got some interns in the room tonight with us. They're doing some really good work. Veterans Committee this Thursday at 4. UBO will be closed for a little while on June the 20th. Just want to make sure that that gets out there. And we have our 4th of July fireworks celebration concert set for July 4th. These are new city employees. You'll see a number of interns on there as well as some other employees. We added, and I will say this, for employee orientation now, and I don't know if this is going to help us retain employees or not, but the first 45 minutes they spend in the city, they spend with me, talking about the structure of city government and the strategic plan and all the things that we have going on. It might be that I enjoy it more than they do. Nobody fell asleep this morning when I did it. Nobody threw anything at me, so I'm thinking it's a pretty good, a good thing. But these are some other folks. We do have a planner, you'll note in there, Jacob Hawks. So one of our 2 planning positions, and actually had the second planner, Travis, was in there. He'll appear in next month's photo. So we've got those 2 planning positions filled. And there is one of our employees right here, Lydia Meldrum. See several people in here. Mr. Logan Crumpley is with us today as well. So we're really enjoying having the interns around. Had some lifeguards today in that training, and a number of summer recreation leaders. And finally, let me just say that we've had some promoted employees. Mr. Westmoreland in Public Works, Denton Bennett in Police, Jeff Slover in Police, and Thomas Ray in Recreation have all received promotions in this last month. And with that, I think that's my last slide. It's not advancing, so I'll be happy to.
The end.
Happy to take. I'm going to keep pushing, but it's not doing anything. Happy to take questions.
Any questions for the manager? Ms. Rackard, you have a report?
No, sir.
Okay. I have a request, whether it's for you and Mr. Heeman jointly or for you. We need to have a session on what action we're going to take related to Groves Park Commons, and that needs to be on the top of our list going forward.
I can give you a slight update on that.
Okay.
I'm waiting to receive an actual official written opinion. I did contact a local law firm that does title work, so that someone else was actually looking at a determination of the history of all of the deeds and everything on the property, not just me, but somebody who does that, has more of their regular day-to-day to ensure that we were looking at that correctly. So I have spoken to them. They have told me who owns the roads and who's responsible for maintenance. I am just waiting for that to be given to me officially in writing, and then I will submit that back to you, and then we can schedule that and discuss it at a work session. But I do also have a meeting scheduled. Jennifer Williams and I have a meeting scheduled with at least one of the homeowners out there to come in and talk about some of their questions, and seeing if they want to invite some of the other neighbors to come along too, and that is not next week, I think, but the week after.
All right, good.
So we are still communicating with them and still looking for that information, but I should have that letter. I really thought that I would already have that letter in my hand, but I'm in a conference for the rest of the week, so I expect I'll receive it next week.
Which firm's doing the letter?
Joyce Meredith, Flitcroft and Norman.
Okay. All right. Mr. Hammond?
That's a real quick question. You noted that you're meeting with maybe a couple of the homeowners. Is there, and I'm just thinking out loud, an opportunity to create space for a broader discussion so that others may be a part of that? Maybe not, but we can certainly talk about it. I'm just thinking in line of some of the other conversations that we've created, spaces and opportunities when there are several people with those kind of concerns.
Well, I think we've looked at it with the one homeowner that we have talked to about scheduling in a meeting, and don't necessarily want to take over that meeting that she's already got scheduled and invite other people without her permission, but we're certainly opening that up to have meetings with other people as well.
All right, anything else before we adjourn? Thank you all for your presence and for your participation, and we are adjourned. Good night.
Can't believe that there wasn't a single person that spoke on that after those 30 emails.